It started the Monday before Easter. I was 13 that year, too old for egg hunts, but still young enough to be curious when I noticed the small plastic egg sitting on our front porch step. It was one of those cheap hollow ones, pastel green with a little crack running down the middle where the two halves clicked together. I figured it fell out of a kid's basket or something. Our neighborhood was full of young families, and parents around here like to get festive early. I picked it up without thinking and popped it open. No candy, just a single Polaroid photo, curled slightly from sitting inside the egg. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. It was a grainy shot, poor lighting, bad focus, of someone sleeping. A man, I think. He was lying on his side with one arm under the pillow, blankets half kicked off. I didn't recognize him. The room looked generic, like a cheap motel, plain white sheets, some kind of dark wood headboard, maybe a nightstand with a lamp. Nothing specific. I showed it to my mom when she got home from work. She gave it a quick glance, muttered something like, "Weird," and tossed it on the kitchen counter. She figured it was a prank. Some bored kid with a camera and too much time. It was spring break, after all. That night, I kept thinking about the egg. The way it was placed so neatly right in the center of our porch. It hadn't fallen there. Someone put it there. On purpose. The next morning, I stepped outside and froze. Another egg. This one was pink. Same spot. Same size. Same type of cheap plastic. I looked around, across the street, down the block, even up at the bare tree branches creaking overhead, but everything was still. Quiet. It was early enough that the neighborhood hadn't really woken up yet. I cracked the egg open and felt a pit form in my stomach. Another Polaroid. This one was closer. Still someone asleep, but the angle had changed, lower, nearer to the bed. You could see more of the face now. He had short dark hair, stubble. Still not anyone I recognized. But the composition, it felt off. Like whoever took the photo was crouching at the edge of the bed. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept checking the corners of my room, peeking out through the blinds, listening for footsteps on the porch. I didn't know what I was afraid of yet. I just knew something was wrong. By Wednesday morning, the eggs had become routine. Another one, pale yellow this time, waited like clockwork on the step. The photo inside was worse. It was the same man, but this time his eyes were barely open. Just slits. Like he was waking up. Or trying to. His mouth was open, mid-breath. I couldn't stop staring at it. The angle had shifted again. Now it looked like the shot was taken from the foot of the bed. When I showed my mom again, she got annoyed. Thought I was playing some weird prank, maybe with kids from school. She told me to stop picking them up and to throw the next one away. But I didn't. I couldn't. By Thursday, the man in the photo wasn't just a stranger anymore. The bed looked familiar. So did the curtains, the lamp, the nightstand. I ran upstairs and stared at my own room. It wasn't identical, not exactly, but it was close. The layout, the colors, the positioning of things. I started to wonder if the earlier shots were taken in other houses, other bedrooms, a pattern I was only just now falling into. Friday morning, I didn't even hesitate. I opened the door at 6 a.m. and grabbed the orange egg with shaking hands. The photo made my stomach flip. It was me, sleeping, on my side. Same blue comforter, same posters on the wall. Even the stuffed bear tucked halfway under the pillow, a leftover from when I was a little kid that I never bothered to move. I looked dead in that photo. Pale, mouth open. No idea a camera had been inches from my face. That day, I tore my room apart. Checked under the bed, in the closet, even in the crawl space. I searched for hidden cameras, for holes in the walls, anything. But there was nothing. No wires. No lights. No signs anyone had ever been in there. I didn't tell my mom about that one. I could barely even look her in the eye. I didn't sleep that night. I left my bedroom light on. Stayed under the covers, wide awake, heart thudding in my ears. At 5:45 a.m. on Saturday, I was already by the door, waiting. The egg was there again. Purple this time. Inside, a photo taken from inside my closet. The slats of the door were just barely visible in the edges of the frame. You could see me in bed, facing the other way. The camera had captured the back of my head, my neck, my shoulders. The time on the digital clock on my dresser read 3:12 a.m. I opened my closet, heart in my throat. Nothing. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to run away, call the police. But what could I say? That someone was leaving eggs on my porch with photos of me sleeping? It sounded crazy, like something out of a movie. That night, I set up my mom's old camcorder on a tripod, pointed at my bed. I told myself I'd catch them. Whoever was doing this, I'd get proof. But I couldn't keep my eyes open. Sometime around 2 a.m., I drifted off. Easter Sunday. I didn't want to open the door. I didn't want to see what was there. But I did. The final egg was white. Inside, a photo of me, asleep, from above, as if the camera was just hovering over my bed. My eyes were shut, but something was wrong. My mouth was open wider than in any of the other shots. My lips were stretched unnaturally far, like I was mid-screen. The angle made my whole body look small and sunken, like I was being swallowed by the bed. My hands were missing from the frame. I ran to the camera, rewound the tape. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the lens went black, just for a second. A flicker. Then it showed me sleeping again. But in the last frame before the battery died, my closet door was open. It hadn't been opened before. And in the inch of darkness beyond the slats, you could just barely make out a shape. Not a person. Not really. More like the outline of something crouched. Watching. That was 6 years ago. We moved not long after, but I still don't sleep well the week before Easter. And every year, without fail, a single egg shows up wherever I'm living. Always a different color. Always empty. But now, I don't open them. Story 2. It was the Easter before my sister went missing. That's the only way I remember the year now, not by the date, not by how old I was, but by the fact that it was the last time I saw her. Her name was Kaylee. She was 9. I was 16. I didn't always have the patience for her back then. She was loud, clingy, always barging into my room. But she had this way of making every holiday feel like magic, even ones I'd grown out of. That year, she begged my parents to let her do the egg hunt for real, which meant hiding eggs all week and finding them again Easter morning, like a countdown. My dad bought a big plastic tote full of pastel eggs from the dollar store. Kaylee would sneak outside every afternoon to hide a few in the front yard, then act surprised when she found them again later. It was harmless fun. At least, that's what we thought. Until the red egg showed up. I remember the color because Kaylee didn't use red ones. She said it was too close to blood and didn't match the pastel vibe. But this one was deep red, glossy, and a little bigger than the others. She found it halfway buried near the edge of the porch. She was thrilled, thought it had fallen out of her stash. When she cracked it open, I was standing right there. Inside was a photo. Not candy, not a toy. Just a small square photo, not a Polaroid exactly, but something similar. Glossy, matte finish. It showed our front yard. Taken from a distance, like through a zoom lens. You could see Kaylee kneeling by the garden bed, holding a pink egg. She thought it was so cool, like a secret admirer had caught her mid-hunt. She ran inside to show our mom, who just laughed and assumed one of the neighbor kids was playing a trick. But it wasn't a trick, because the next day, there was another red egg, this one hidden behind the mailbox. And the photo inside showed me and Kaylee, on the porch, opening the first red egg. The angle was different, closer. It looked like it had been taken from inside a car on the street. Now my mom started to get weirded out. She told us to bring any more eggs straight to her. She even checked the neighbor's security cams, but nobody had seen anything. No one unusual on our porch. No strange cars. Nothing. We all tried to forget about it. My dad joked it was just some bored creep with a drone. But on Good Friday, 2 eggs showed up. Both red. One on our porch. One inside the backyard shed, a shed we kept padlocked and hadn't used in months. The one on the porch held a photo of Kaylee. In her room. Sitting at her desk, coloring. The one in the shed? It was a photo of her sleeping. Taken from above. Like from the ceiling fan or the top of the closet. That was when my mom lost it. She called the cops. They came, took the photos, wrote a report, and told us to keep the doors locked. But there was no forced entry. No fingerprints. Nothing to go on. Just 2 creepy photos and eggs and no explanation. That night, my dad drilled shut the windows and put a deadbolt on Kaylee's door. She didn't sleep. Neither did I. The morning of Easter Sunday, I woke up to screaming. Not from my parents. From Kaylee's room. Except it wasn't Kaylee screaming. It was a recording. Her voice. Playing from a cheap cassette player, sitting in the middle of her bed. And the red egg next to it? Held a photo of her standing at the edge of the woods behind our house. In pajamas. Smiling. Like she posed for it. We never found her. Search teams combed the woods for days. Dogs, helicopters, all of it. Nothing. No footprints. No trail. No sign of her at all. Her window had never been opened. The door was still locked from the outside. It was like she vanished into thin air. The only clue left behind was a sticky note taped to the bottom of the egg. For words, written in a child's shaky handwriting. She came for me. We didn't understand it then. Not until the following Easter, when another red egg showed up on our porch. Inside, a photo of me, asleep, in my bed, and in the blurry background, just barely visible in the closet mirror. A small figure, wearing Kaylee's bunny print pajamas, smiling. Story 3. It started with a garden. My dad had this dream of growing his own vegetables once he retired. Nothing fancy, tomatoes, zucchini, some herbs. He ordered a bunch of tools off Amazon, rented a tiller, and decided Easter weekend would be the perfect time to get started. Said it'd be good for us to do something real together. I didn't exactly jump at the idea. I was 16, not really the manual labor type, but my mom guilt-tripped me into helping. So that Saturday, while my friends were posting about egg hunts and brunches, I was outside in the backyard, ankle-deep in churned-up soil, trying not to inhale dirt dust. The first egg showed up around noon. I was running the tiller through a rough patch near the back fence when something bright blue popped out of the ground like a plastic root. I shut off the machine, thinking maybe it was an old toy or trash from when the previous owners lived here. But it wasn't trash. It was a plastic Easter egg, the kind that snaps open in two halves. Scuffed, faded, but still sealed tight. I called over to my dad. He was on his knees digging near the other end of the yard. I held the egg up and said something like, "Looks like you missed one." He just chuckled and went back to work. I cracked it open. Inside was a small, curled-up clump of reddish-brown hair. Long human, probably. It had that pale, dry texture, like it had been buried a while. At first, I thought it was a prank, maybe a Halloween leftover. But I got this weird feeling in my stomach, like I'd opened something that didn't want to be found. I showed my dad. He frowned, poked at it with his trowel, and said maybe it was animal fur. We tossed it in the garbage bag and didn't talk about it again. But the next day, Easter Sunday, I went back out to help finish digging the rows. That's when I found the second egg. This one was deeper, nearly a foot down. Yellow plastic, cracked slightly on one side. It had something rattling inside. I pulled it open and nearly dropped it. There was a tooth inside. Not a baby tooth, an adult molar. Brown around the edges, like it had been burned. It rolled out into my glove. I didn't say anything to my dad this time. I just pocketed the egg and went inside to wash my hands. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those stupid eggs. Why were they buried in our backyard? Who put them there? And how deep did they go? The next morning, Monday, I skipped school and went out early with a flashlight and the garden spade. I started digging where I'd found the last one, going deeper, slower. I hit something hard around 2 feet down. It was another egg, green. Inside, a photograph. It wasn't a Polaroid, more like one of those wallet-sized glossy prints you get from a drugstore kiosk. It was dirty, but intact. It showed a little girl, sitting in a backyard, holding an Easter basket. She was staring straight at the camera. No smile, just wide, blank eyes. The background looked like our yard. The same fence, same trees, just younger, like it was taken years ago. I felt a chill crawl up my neck. I brought the photo inside and scrubbed it clean under the faucet. On the back, someone had written a name in red marker, Amy. No last name, no date. I didn't show it to my parents. I don't know why. I just had this instinct to keep it to myself. I Googled missing persons cases. Amy, girl Easter photo, suburban backyard. Nothing came up. Tuesday, I skipped school again. I started digging a grid. Section by section, I turned over the soil. By the afternoon, I found the fourth egg. This one was orange. Inside, a strip of cloth. Faded pink, torn at the edge, like the corner of a child's dress. There was blood on it, dried and dark. I started to feel sick. Wednesday, I dug even deeper. By then, the garden looked like a crater field. My dad had stopped asking questions, just figured I was into it now. He had no clue I was finding something new every day. Egg 5 was purple. Inside, a second photo. This one from a different angle. Same girl, Amy, this time standing. She looked thinner. Her clothes were dirtier. She was still holding the basket, but it was empty. Thursday, another egg. Black. Inside was a small, metal charm. A bunny melted around the edges, like it had been in a fire. Friday, I hit something I thought was a rock. I dug around it and pulled up a plastic tote, the kind you store holiday decorations in. The lid was sealed with duct tape. I had to saw through it with a steak knife. Inside were at least a dozen eggs, all red. I opened the first one. Inside, a finger bone. The next, a Polaroid of a dirt mound. Fresh, unmarked. I stopped after the fourth. My hands were shaking too bad. That night, I finally showed my dad everything. The photos, the cloth, the eggs. I expected him to freak out, to call the police. But instead, he got very, very quiet. He looked at the photo of the girl for a long time, then said, without looking at me, "That's not the first time I've seen her." I asked what he meant. He said when they bought the house 10 years ago, there'd been rumors. A girl had gone missing in the area. Some neighbors thought she was taken. Others thought she'd run away. Nothing was ever proven. My dad never told me because, and I quote, "I didn't want you scared of the yard." He finally called the police the next morning. They brought cadaver dogs. Forensics. The whole thing turned into a crime scene. They found partial remains under the far corner of the fence. Confirmed they were human, probably female. Most of the eggs contained biological evidence, is what they said. They took my statements. I haven't heard much since. But here's the part that still keeps me up. Yesterday, a full year later, I went out to check on the garden. My mom planted daffodils where they dug up the body. It's the only spot she keeps watered. Sitting between the flowers was a single egg. Brand new. Pale pink. Not buried. I opened it. Inside was a photograph. Of me. Asleep. In my bed. And in the corner of the image, barely visible, was a small plastic tote. Still sealed.